Hi, I'm Kitty Feldy. Last week, we discussed the novel in verse Starfish by Lisa Fipps. The book has one of the most gorgeous covers around. So, Lisa, how did that cover end up on your book?
It was kind of magical, I have to say, because I don't know if most readers know this, but authors normally don't have a lot of say-so in the covers. But I work with an amazing editor named Nancy Polson. She's a genius. She's with Penguin Random House. Well, she's with Nancy Polson Books, which is a division of Penguin Random House. And she said, hey, we're going to start working on the cover. Can you send me just a list of illustrators that you love and why? What do you like about their work and so forth? And oh boy, was I excited because I was like, I don't know if this is going to help. I don't know what this means, but I'm willing. So I would find a picture of a cover with water on it. And I'd be like, I love the way they created water on this. Or I love the way they shaded the light coming in. Or I love the use of the font here. Or I loved, and I would explain all this because I didn't know. I thought, are they going to go kind of generic and just put a starfish on there? And if you do that, please use what's called a sugar starfish, which is like a fatter starfish, right? And not a pencil starfish, which is skinny and tiny. And so I thought, okay. So I sent it off to her and she goes, oh, this is so helpful. Thank you. And then a few months later, I get this email and it's like, hey, here's the first draft of the cover. What do you think? And they had found a graphic designer and illustrator out of Dublin, Ireland. And her name is Tara O'Brien. And the picture of the very first cover was exactly like the cover, but it was just a pencil drawing. And I was like, if that is the first draft, we are golden. And I just cried because I was so happy. And so if you look at the cover, it has been this all along. All they did was they added some ombre effect to the starfish. They put in the color, obviously, because it started out as a pencil drawing. And then they said, do you have any suggestions? And I was like, I love it. I don't really have anything to say other than if we have flowers on her swimsuit, can we maybe make some of them Texas bluebonnets because they're ubiquitous to Texas? And so they added that. And then, as a surprise, I didn't know this was going to happen, they put Gigi on the back, which I love that. So I was so excited. So that's how it came about. I just am so happy with the cover because it's just perfect. And I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I think why I was able to do that is because when I was a journalist, part of getting your journalism degree is you learn photography and you learn graphic design and you learn journalism law and you learn marketing and you learn advertising. So it's like a 5-fingered approach to journalism. And then I have designed stuff for newspapers and publications for years. So I knew, I get images in my head. I'm like, oh, you could do this. And so I knew what was possible, even though I couldn't do it.
How did you make that transition from journalism to writing novels in verse for kids?
It's one of those things where, if you can, say, bake a cookie, you're more likely to be able to bake a cake, right? Because the same kind of principles apply. Maybe mix the dry ingredients before you mix the wet, and then you mix them wet and dry together. So there's very similar things in cooking. Once you learn one skill, it translates over. So what I found was, even though I was a journalist and then, switched to writing for children, it's still storytelling. And the elements of storytelling basically are you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That you really need to have some really cool characters that are memorable. And you need to capture who they are through what they say and how they say it. So dialogue. I guess I just looked at it from that way, and then it made more sense to me. And then I think, too, because I've been such an avid reader, I could not, my mother could not keep me in reading materials. We would go to, I grew up poor, so we would go to the public library, we'd go to the school library. So she had purchased a complete set of encyclopedias, right? And so when I ran out of reading materials, I would read encyclopedias, like literally, like I still remember The Anatomy of a Frog, and because it had layered like pages. And I think just between the reading so much and figuring out how prose works and how verse works and poetry works, just reading those examples over and over and over, and then having the skills and transferring them, I think it all work together that way. Does that make sense? It's sort of taking wet ingredients and dry ingredients and mixing them to make those cookies or cake or whatever.
Were you a poet at heart?
I didn't really realize it until I thought back, but I've written so much poetry, especially in school, because that's a lot of times how my thought process works. And I'm not really sure why. I guess I would have to sit down and really, really think about why I do. But I guess, that literally part of the definition of poetry, or the central part of the definition of poetry, is writing that evokes emotion. And for me, that's what connects me to story, no matter what form it is. Whether it's a graphic novel, whether it's a novel in verse, whether it's prose, is the emotion it evokes inside of me. And as a writer, it's all about the emotion I want to evoke in the reader. And so poetry is a really good tool when you want to have a powerful emotional impact. I am like you. I don't like all poetry. No offense to Mr. Shakespeare, but I found that to be kind of hard to grasp, right? Because normally you study it when you're under 25 and your brain is still developing. But I think that it just depends on who writes it, the format, the word choice, and the subject, because I've seen other things that Shakespeare did that I'm like, oh, okay, now I like that. So, and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to like some poetry and not others. It's okay to like some poems and not others. It's okay to like some books and not others. It's really okay. I always say, if you read what you love, you'll love what you read.
Thanks, Lisa. We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org, on our Writers on Writing page. And if you're listening to this episode in late March of 2023, come on down on the 1st of April to the LA Maker Faire. Book Club for Kids will be recording interviews with young readers for future episodes. We always ask kids to answer our toughest question, what's your favorite book and why? We'll even be taping some kids live on stage at 3 o'clock. So come on out to the Los Angeles State Historic Park near Chinatown in downtown Los Angeles, Saturday, April 1st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free, and you'll have the opportunity to check out rockets and robots and other fun stuff and be on the Book Club for Kids podcast. There's a link in the show notes. I'm Kitty Feldy. Thanks so much for listening.